The phenomenon termed Workism frames work as the central purpose of life and an essential driver of human welfare, paired with the presenteeism, where job insecurity compels employees to work excessive hours just to be seen. This culture erodes well being. Social media contributes by amplifying the pressure to showcase success, especially in white collar jobs where output is often intangible. This has led to alarming health issues, psychological issues, with young professionals in their 30s and 40s facing heart attacks, psychosomatic disorders, and other ailments. Japan's term Karoshi reflects the deadly consequence of overwork, including heart failure, stroke, and stress induced suicide. The hustle culture, in a way, glamorizes extreme work ethics, promoting the false belief that working harder and longer guarantees success. Nothing could be farther from truth. In this podcast, I will try to highlight the damage that is being caused by the work obsession of two types of people: those who work for others as employees and those who are entrepreneurs as employers. In many Asian countries, the question of identity is invariably linked to our work identity. The typical conversation begins with asking, "Where do you work and what do you do?" If we ask a question, "What is the purpose of your existence?" we may leave people confused. The focus on listing activities is almost an obsession. While it is fashionable these days to wax eloquent on work life balance, the reality is frightening. How many of us are glued to the cell phone all the time? Just reflect. Have you seen someone who, even when watching a movie in a theater with his wife, hears the beep on his phone and loses all his poise and balance? Looking periodically at your mailbox is almost an addictive obsession with many of us. With the managers working in global organizations, getting calls or mails in the middle of the night is a very common occurrence. It has indeed become a sad reality of modern life that many are wedded to their jobs while divorced at home. It is as if our identity is limited to our being a vice president or a director or a manager and not as a husband or a father or a son. Have you not met this manager who, even on a vacation, gets glued to his office mails? I know a case of a well educated and well settled couple on the verge of separation as the wife hated the sight of her hubby on Zoom or Google Meet in the middle of the night with his counterpart on the other side of the planet. I knew a manager of one of the largest banks in India who went on his annual vacation with his family, and guess what he was busy doing in the hill station? He was visiting the branch of his bank there regularly in a very um, 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 and spending time with his colleagues. In a very cynical way, how to occupy the leisure time has become a problem with many executives. Someone has coined a term for this phenomenon, workism, which I mentioned earlier. And what is that? It is the belief that work is not only necessary to economic production, but also the centerpiece of one's identity and life's purpose, and the belief that any policy to promote human welfare must always encourage more work. Added to the concept of workism is the concept of presenteeism. When job insecurity leads to employees putting in long working hours just to be seen to be in the office, it is known as presenteeism. I am present. We need to ask this question: why the managers of today are burning themselves out? One possible cue is the onslaught of social media and the expectation of others, which is amplified in a way the pressure to craft an image of success for oneself, for one's friends and colleagues, and even for one's parents. But literally, visualizing career success can be difficult in a services and information economy. Blue collar jobs produce tangible products like coal, steel rods, and houses. The output of white collar workers work like algorithms, consulting projects, programmatic um, advertising campaigns is more shapeless and often quite invisible. It's not glib to say that whiter the collar, the more invisible the product. No wonder when a child asked his dad, why doesn't he work other than staring all the time in the computer? I talked about expectations of others. I call it a curse that has affected almost everybody. Parents are the prime culprits in projecting their expectations to their kids. Tremendous pressure is brought upon the child to compete, almost ruining the childhood. This obsession gets internalized, and the man thus gets completely enmeshed in the jobs, again to prove to himself and to others that his sole purpose of existence is the work. No wonder that we are hearing cases of young executives getting heart attacks and other ailments in their 30s and 40s. Not realizing that overwork is underproductive is the bane of many. Japan has a phrase for death by overwork, Karoshi, meaning sudden death from heart failure, stroke, or committing suicide due to stress and sleep deprivation. Many entrepreneurs, high level executives, even entry level assistants and students wear their work ethic as if it were a badge of honor. If you're waking up earlier than your peers and taking on more work than your peers, then you're getting ahead of your peers, right? In the age of hustling, we are taught to believe, unfortunately, that the harder and the longer we work, the more successful we are or will become. Now, let me try to analyze the category whom we call as entrepreneurs. And this is the real tragedy. It is widely held belief that successful or on the way to become successful people have a balanced perspective about everything, for without that, they would not be there where they are. They have consciously nurtured and honed their networking skills. They are assertive and have a strong mind of their own. They have strong internal locus of control and a powerful drive to achieve success in their chosen endeavors. Passion for work and risk tolerance, coupled with astute commercial sense, makes them a formidable candidate to be called a successful entrepreneur. I include among this group businessmen, film actors, and those on the fast lane. While most of the above description may be close to reality, Yet a bit of scratching may reveal a completely different picture, and that has a lot to do with the influence of biological traits over the psychological traits. All such people with high drive and ambition face potential risk of failure in their ventures during all phases of its evolution. Despite their strong achievement motivation and drive, the pressure of constantly meeting deadlines, achieving targets, improving bottom line, and more importantly, getting them through others brings its own set of anxiety. Added to this is a feeling of false ego, bloated ego, that prevents them from sharing their innermost fears and anxiety to even their near and dear ones. A couple of years back, an example of the suicide of the famous coffee chain owner proves the point, wherein he wrote in his suicide note that he had hidden the problems even from his family. Another problem in this context is the ever changing goals and aspirations that constantly puts the pressure and limits satisfaction. I have personally known cases of few phenomenally successful entrepreneurs who have major problems of insomnia and have to swallow pills all the time. To complicate matters, such individuals also get into the trap of denying the reality and tend to portray a very happy picture of themselves. I knew a successful entrepreneur who had set up a business empire that was talked about everywhere. He had major issues at home and also had to face a lot of business rivalry from jealous people. But outwardly, he never displayed any signs of tension. This contrasting lifestyle resulted in his having untimely brain hemorrhage and his death. In such a complicated and stressful scenario, the first casualty is a work life balance. Many entrepreneurs have not had happy family life as their preoccupation with business gets skewed completely. It also takes a toll on their physical health. Worse still, they start suffering an oscillation between hypomania and anxiety attacks. Let me shortly dwell on this hypomania. Constant mood swings are a prominent feature of hypomania. Entrepreneurs who suffer from hypomania become euphoric and develop momentary sense of well-being, a kind of bipolarity. They feel unbounded energy. They become suddenly highly creative, at times bohemian, and full of ideas, and as a result of this, become irritable with others for the lack of it. Their self esteem and confidence reach unrealistic levels. Many a times, this also results in um, promiscuous affairs as it boosts their ego. They cannot relax and develop a psychologically loud behavior. Because of these feelings and sensations, their behavior gets manifested differently from normal people. They start taking risks which normally a prudent person should not take. Marital infidelity happens most often. They start talking a bit too much, become expansive, and indulge in overcommitment. Often they write in convoluted way about hopes and aspirations in their tweets and Instagram and Facebook postings, social media. They become fidgety and restless with details. Typical conversation will be, get me in one page, don't give me a book, I can't read. In a meeting, their stance often is to order others to finish their point in 2 minutes. They have difficulty to read, as I said, link their documents. Ideal situation to make serious errors of judgment. On the other hand, the other dimension of business stress and anxiety is the onset of depression. In this phase, the person is unable to share his innermost fears with even his close family members. The emotional stress results in high blood pressure, ulcers, even cancer. He cannot take rational, he or she cannot take rational or logical decisions. Have you not heard tragic stories of businessmen ending their lives unable to cope up with the situation? So, what's the solution? We must realize that any business scenario is fraught with many unknown variables. Developing what I call a helicopter attitude is one way to avoid the trap of hypomania or anxiety. Metaphorically, this ability helps us to be on the penthouse, to have the aerial view, what we call a vision, as well as to be in the basement, which is the day to day working, seamlessly. One should have a detached attachment or attached detachment, if you will, with business. Our self efficacy needs to be improved, and this implies that we develop the ability to judge our actions impersonally in a detached manner and continuously ask why we are doing what we are doing. Such an approach is possible if we learn to meditate or reflect regularly. We must keep aside a certain portion of our time for serious reflection, introspection, and corrective action on a daily basis. This equanimous personality style, in my view, will surely help us to avoid the trap of overexcitement and anxiety, depression. I have also observed that those who discuss their business problems openly with their family members or friends, trusted colleagues, are often at peace with themselves and others than those who keep the things to themselves. One of the ancient texts in India, Gita, describes the state of someone who is at peace with himself and others as one who discards all selfish desires and cravings of the senses that torment the mind and becomes satisfied in the realization of the self. Such a person is said to be transcendentally situated. It's important for us to understand our limitations and our possible reach. A critical analysis of our strengths and weaknesses will help us to define our goals in a realistic manner. On a slightly different note, philosophical note, let me ask, who is your CEO? By the way, whenever I have asked this seemingly straight question to managers from different geographies, I have received answers naming their superiors as their CEO. But when I rephrase this by asking, who is the CEO of your soul? Who is the CEO of your soul? I have met with bewildering faces. Indeed, most of us seem to have outsourced our CEOs outside. In India, we have many holy men, millions of gods who have taken complete responsibility for whatever good or bad happens to us. If not them, our fate or luck are easy scapegoats. Why is it that very few take responsibility for their action? Our research indicates that successful people don't outsource their souls to others, but take complete ownership for their actions and the consequences. In technical jargon, they possess what I call as an internal locus of control. As Howard Rourke in Fountainhead famously remarked, we can divide the meal among many men, but we cannot digest in a collective stomach. I repeat, we can divide the meal among many men, but we cannot digest in collective stomach. We need to reflect seriously about shifting or outsourcing the soul um, 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 back to us. Thank you very much.